If you own a home, that means more money in your pocket, but city and county governments will have to make some tough choices about spending. In a whirlwind special session this week, lawmakers just took a couple of days to approve a proposal from Governor Ron DeSantis with a few minor changes. Now the proposed constitutional amendment goes on the ballot, and it's up to you, the voters, to decide. So with us to break down the proposal and what's at stake, WUSF's Douglas Soul. He's part of the Your Florida team and covers state politics from the Capitol. Douglas, thank you so much for joining us.
It's nice to be on, Matthew.
And we heard from some of you on Monday as the session got underway. If you want to weigh in now on what this could mean for your financial situation or the services you depend on from local governments, you can let us know by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562 to join the conversation about property tax cuts, or you can also send an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, here's House Speaker Daniel Perez. He's Republican on the choice now facing voters.
The win here is that we trust our voters. We have smart voters in Florida. We have educated voters, and they're going to have the opportunity to either vote this up or vote this down and on the ballot in November.
And then there's State Senator Carlos Guillermo-Smith. He's a Democrat from Orlando. He said the plan would shift the tax burden to renters and businesses.
Property taxes are the primary funding source for local government, a load-bearing wall. They pay for police officers, firefighters, emergency response, and other core services that families rely on every single day.
Well, the proposal passed mainly on along party lines, I should say. But let's, Douglas, talk about what is in this proposed amendment. Now, if you own a house, the homestead exemption right now is $50,000. If voters approve this in November, what is going to happen to that homestead exemption?
It will increase quite significantly. The exemption would go from, as you stated, $50,000 now up to $150,000 next year. And in 2028, it would go up to $250,000. Obviously, that means a good amount of savings for many Floridians with homes across the state. Of course, it also means local governments are going to have a lot less money in their coffers. And one thing I should note about that exemption, though, before I get sidetracked, is that $250,000 exemption, that increase there, it doesn't apply to the portion of the property tax that goes to schools, just like the county services themselves. So despite DeSantis wanting a kind of fuller exemption, lawmakers opted to protect school funding for that portion of the exemption.
Okay, so there's the first $250,000 of your home can't be taxed or wouldn't be taxed under this, but there's still part of that where you would be having to pay property taxes. I mean, I haven't looked at the proposal in detail, so I'd have to probably pore over it a bit. I'm not quite sure how that works. Do you understand it?
Yeah. I mean, there's portions of the property tax that go to county services. I mean, a lot of county services I could name, all the way from mosquito limitations to water services to public safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Parks and recreation too, among
parks
those
and
things.
recreation, libraries. I mean, there's a slew of services implicated there. And there's also portions that go to the public education system. The portion that goes to, and that's a significant part of the property tax, mind you. I mean, schools get a lot of money through the property tax. So there's still that portion that Floridians would be paying despite that exemption. But the portion that would go to those other things that aren't education related would receive the exemption, which has created significant concerns for local governments, big and small.
Yeah. Now, as you pointed out, Governor DeSantis didn't get everything he wanted in this property tax proposal. And there are a few caveats too, right? People who've just moved to Florida, he was concerned about them kind of jumping on this exemption right away. They won't be able to do that, right?
Not immediately. When this takes when that exemption increases next year, there is a requirement that to receive the larger increased homestead exemption, you need to be here for 5 years. So you might have to, if you move here next year, you might have to, not receive the benefits of this for another half decade. But, certainly there's millions of Florida homeowners that would receive that impact. And that's what this is most imminently focused on.
Yeah. We're talking with Douglas Soul. He's with WUSF's Your Florida team, talking about the proposal to cut property taxes. You'll get to vote on it in November. The proposed constitutional amendment is going on the ballot. Maybe you've got some questions about it or thoughts about how it might impact you. You can call us 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, businesses and rental units are kind of in a different bucket, right? So what happens with them?
Great question. So yeah, this applies to homes, and not just, second or third home. It applies to Floridians' primary homes. If you're a snowbird with a house in Florida, that would not be applicable. It's for homestead exempted homes. But that being said, the lawmakers in DeSantis, they still found a way to benefit those non-homestead properties. We're talking small businesses, major corporations, rental units, even data centers for that matter. Right now, with these kinds of properties, the taxable property tax value can only rise related to the assessed value by 10% every year. So if the property value of your place goes up dramatically, it still can only increase by 10%. That's the limit. It gets cut down under this proposal to 5%, which could mean, rather big savings for businesses and other kinds of properties that would see larger increases otherwise.
We're talking property taxes with WUSF's Douglas Soll. What do you think about the idea to cut property taxes? And you're going to get to vote on it in November, but you can let us know your thoughts now by calling 813-755-6562 or emailing FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, leaders of small towns across Florida are worried about the impact these tax cuts will have on their budgets. And in Tampa, City Council Chair Alan Clendenin said the proposal could affect negotiations for a new stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays.
What happened in Tallahassee was a group of politicians got together and decided to change the Constitution of the state of Florida in 48 hours. Very little thought about the implications that has, not just for the city of Tampa, but every city and every county in the state of Florida. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I wonder what you've been hearing, Douglas, about the impact or the potential impact of this tax cut on local governments up in Tallahassee. Like, what's the chatter been?
Yeah, I mean, you've heard a lot of similar things to the quote you just played. Even Republicans who ultimately voted in support of this proposal, which voters do have to approve by 60% come November before it takes effect. But those Republicans said it was one of the hardest, if not the hardest vote they ever had to make. They were concerned about the effects on the coffers of these governments, especially the rural, small, financially constrained governments that make up a lot of, for example, rural Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And, Governor Ron DeSantis in his initial proposal tried to address some of this by creating a trust fund that would direct some monies to hurting governments that lost revenue because of this. The lawmakers, in their amending of his idea and their ultimate proposal that they passed, they got rid of that trust fund. So, a lot of outstanding questions about what's going to have to be cut. Obviously, these governments, if this passes, will get less money. Less money means less services or, less large of a government. So what happens from here?
Yeah, that is a question, right? Because DeSantis was quite clear in saying, look, core services will not be affected by property tax cuts, but there was a little bit of, lack of clarity about what that exactly means and how local governments might continue those core services, even with big property tax cuts. So did some clarity come through in this day and a half of discussion?
Yeah, it's simply not true that core services are going to be immune from these cuts. I mean, it depends on the municipality or county, but certainly if you have less money coming in, those services will be impacted. Now, what the proposal does specifically say is that property tax revenue can only go toward core services. So we're talking public safety, we're talking infrastructure, et cetera. Relatively big list for the core services that are applicable here.
Yeah.
But still, if you have less money coming in, you have less money going to the core services, even if that's all you're spending on. So
right. A lot of
certainly
questions
those aren't
there.
protected. Yeah.
I want to get a call in here if I could real quick. Louis is calling in from Brandon. You're on the air. If you've got just a few seconds to let us know what you think there, Louis.
Sure. I'm not a real fan of this reduction of the homestead tax, the real estate taxes writ large. As a fiscal conservative, it just seems to me that you got to pay for the services you get. And we're going to be getting the services one way or another. If we remove the real estate taxes, somebody's going to have to make up that difference somewhere else. And that's just common sense.
Louis, thank you so much for your call. Appreciate that. So, Douglas, in the last kind of 30 seconds or so we have here, as I said, some unanswered questions, but voters nonetheless have to decide in November, and this needs to pass with 60% of voters agreeing, right?
Yes, that's 100% correct. And you're going to be seeing tons of promotion on either side for this suggested amendment. And I talked to Toby Overdorf, a lawmaker, Republican lawmaker, who's big behind this. And he said there's a lot of discussions and even maybe litigation before November about how this would actually look on the ballot and after. So you're not done seeing headlines about this. In fact, they'll probably escalate in the coming weeks and months.
And you'll be covering it all. Douglas Soul, covering Tallahassee for WUSF as part of the Your Florida team. Thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
No, I'm always happy to be on.
Well, coming up in about 10 minutes, are you excited for some World Cup soccer? England is going to play New Zealand in a friendly match in Tampa this weekend, and the tournament proper kicks off next Thursday. If you're going to be watching, want to hear from you, you can join the conversation as we talk soccer in about 10 minutes. But first, how far can a shark swim in a year? We'll check in with Larry the whale shark. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues.
WUSF helps you understand what's happening in the legislature and how it affects your local neighborhoods, like a bill to give homeowners the right to build and rent out extra living space on their property.
This turns a promising affordable housing strategy into a party house bill.
WUSF keeps you connected to your neighborhood at WUSF.org.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, Sessoms Law Group. Mark Sessoms has 34 years of legal experience and 17 leading Sessoms Law. The practice focuses on civil trial law, marital and family law. Offices in Tampa, Lakeland, Sarasota, and Sebring. SessomsLawGroup.com.
When it comes to bringing you the news, WUSF has your back. But WUSF counts on listener contributions to keep it going. Another way to help is to donate a vehicle you no longer need. Pickup is free and it's easy. Plus, it could mean hundreds of dollars for WUSF. Learn more at WUSF.org or at 866-WUSF-CAR.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. A little over a year ago, scientists put a satellite tag on a massive whale shark off the coast of Tampa. They named him Larry, after a kind physician who let researchers use his boat. Nobody expected him to embark on the epic record-breaking journey of thousands of miles that he's currently on. Tell us more about Larry's incredible trek and what it teaches us about Gulf marine biology. We're joined by Eric Hoffmeyer, co-lead of this tracking project. Eric, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matthew.
And if you've ever spotted one of these gentle giants, a whale shark in the Gulf or elsewhere, if you maybe you want to learn more about Gulf marine research, you can join the conversation. If you've got a question for a researcher, the number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Eric, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a whale shark, and why has it been kind of tricky for scientists to find them without help from the public up until now?
So whale sharks are the largest fish in the ocean. They can reach sizes up to 40 to 50 feet long. And so they're also the largest shark. And so we typically reference them as like a swimming school bus.
Huh.
So as an image for people to think about. And if you've not seen a whale shark, they're typically tops of their backs are dark colored with white spots, and the spots themselves are unique to the individual. So it's like a fingerprint. And so we can use that to identify individuals. And so whale sharks are sort of a mysterious, animal that we have here in the Gulf. And for the longest time, we didn't even realize how common they were, because primarily they're found in offshore waters. And it wasn't until 2002 that we actually encountered some in the Gulf and really got us thinking about, how common they are. And reaching out to a lot of folks that spend a lot of time offshore, we were kind of blown away with how often people see them. but you gotta be way offshore in most cases.
And this guy, Larry, is about 26 feet long. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So he's kind of, I thought 26 feet is quite big, but it sounds like he's not even the biggest whale shark out there.
No, Larry was about at the size of maturity, maybe a little bit. So he's an adult male. But yeah, I've seen them as large as about 40 foot.
Wow.
Out here in the Gulf. So yeah, they can get very large.
Do they look like a shark, or when you see it, do you think that's a whale?
So they got the name whale shark because they were the size of whales. But most of their characteristics match what you would think of a shark, other than the teeth. They have extremely small teeth that aren't really utilized for feeding. It's more of a vestigial. Organic, whale sharks are filter feeders, so they're constantly straining the water like we see with some large whales.
Huh. That's interesting. So take us back to the day you tagged Larry in May of last year. Your team jumped in the water and found this big blanket of fish eggs, which I'm sure was fun to dive through. What did that tell you, though, about what sharks like Larry are eating and how they choose where to travel?
So it was very interesting for us. So for years, our efforts were focused in the North Central Gulf, where we're located here in Mississippi, and we'd always receive sightings of animals off Tampa. But since we always had animals nearby, we never made the attempt. And so recently, we've been having trouble finding animals in our area. And so last year, we made an effort to target the animals off of Tampa, and we received a few sightings over the years of groups, but we assumed there was some feeding aggregations. But last year was just such a treat to. I think the day we encountered Larry, I think our plane saw 19 animals spread out, and all of them were feeding on a dense aggregation of fish eggs, and it's probably the most dense aggregation I've seen. And I've seen a lot of been in a lot of environments where whale sharks were feeding on fish eggs, and so it was. You had to get really close to the animal to make out the spot pattern. Let's put it that way. It was a pretty dense.
So they're basically just swimming through this cloud of fish eggs like a ocean going Roomba, just hoovering them up.
Yes, mouth open. Typically, these eggs are spawned at depth and they float to the surface, and so the whale sharks come up, open their mouths, and they just strain the surface waters where the eggs are at. And so, so then they constantly go back and forth, and you can kind of see the extent of where these eggs are because they'll turn around and then work back through, and they're just constantly moving back and forth through the masses of eggs.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Eric Hoffmeyer. He is co-lead of a tracking project, tracking Larry the whale shark around the Gulf, and learning about Gulf marine biology and the habits of these sharks as well. So you attach the tag to the whale shark. Sometimes these can get damaged and fall off quickly, but Larry's tag is still pinging almost every single day. Why is this specific tag lasting so long? What kind of data are you getting from it?
So that's our $1 million question. We've been asking that a lot lately. We've put over the years, we've put a lot of tags on sharks, and once you put a tag on, you just never know what's going to happen. Like you mentioned, they can be damaged. These whale sharks like to rub up against boats, structures, the bottom. You can damage the antenna. They tend to dive really deep. We've tracked them down to 2,000 meters, and so they can damage the tag in that instance. And so it's hard to explain why we're seeing such a great response from this tag that's on Larry. Two things. One, it's lasted over a year now, which is amazing. This is sort of what we're trying to reach with the gold standard of tagging, to get long-term tracking data of these animals. But like you mentioned, typically we get 100 to 150 days of data over a year long. In this case, Larry reported 335 out of 365 days. So we're getting a wealth of information, a lot of detail, over 6,200 locations during this past year.
And I think I said in the intro, it's like thousands of miles. Do you actually have a figure on that? Like how far has Larry traveled?
So based on the raw data that we have now, Larry's traveled over 18,000 miles in the year. So that's equivalent to making 6 trips from New York City to LA throughout the year. So it's pretty amazing.
Is that did you realize that whale sharks traveled that far? I mean, I know sharks just basically constantly swim, right? But is this sort of new information?
So it's not necessarily new information. These animals have the ability to travel really far. I mean, most animals are constrained by their size with their movement, and obviously without whale sharks being so large. What was interesting was we tagged a number of animals in the northern Gulf, and none of them had left the Gulf of Mexico. And then as we moved to the eastern Gulf and we started tagging animals, we've had 8 animals leave. And some travel as far as Venezuela, Dominican Republic, up to the northeast U.S. And so something, an animal like Larry making his movements, the really neat part is, you can see where there were straight line movements where he was actually making, migrations, but there's other areas where he spent a lot of time. And so it's opening our eyes to other areas of feeding opportunities and important areas for whale sharks throughout the Gulf and the Caribbean.
And it sounds like you're just going to keep tracking them as long as you can, right? Until that tag falls off.
That's the plan. We're trying to decide if we want to replace the tag and put a new tag on. But right now that tag is working so well, I don't know if I want to screw with it.
Well, we've been speaking with Eric Hoffmeyer, co-lead of the Whale Shark Tracking Project, about the incredible year-long journey of Larry the Whale Shark. Eric, thank you so much for your insights.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Well, coming up next, international sports take over downtown Tampa. New Zealand takes on England at the Raymond James Stadium. What does this matchup mean for local soccer fans and the World Cup to come? That kicks off next Thursday. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in a moment. Stay with us.
On the next Fresh Air, Clark Peters. His breakout role was in the HBO series The Wire as police detective Lester Freeman. In Spike Lee's Da 5 Bloods, he was a Vietnam veteran. In real life, Peters opposed the war and was arrested at a protest which changed his life. He moved to London, starred in musicals there, and now stars in the series The Burrows. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Gulfside Healthcare Services has provided expert, compassionate care in hospice, palliative, and home health for over 35 years. Now serving Pinellas Hospice patients. Call 800-561-4883 for information or visit gulfside.org.
This is WUSF, your spot for local healthcare news. Read more at wusf.org/health.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. The World Cup is about to kick off, and this year they'll be playing in cities all across the North American continent.
In 2026, we will bring the world together. 3 countries, 16 cities, 48 teams, 104 games. All of us, united as individuals.
But before those games begin, the teams from England and New Zealand are going to spend a bit of time on the field in Tampa. The 2 teams are playing in the Florida Series this Saturday. It's a friendly match at Raymond James Stadium. And as the summer is about to become soccer-filled across many parts of the Sunshine State, we invited soccer aficionado and reporter Will Brown from Jacksonville today to share some of his wealth of knowledge about soccer. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to hear from you too. Maybe you're a soccer fan excited for the US to host and compete in the World Cup. You can join the conversation. The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. If you are actually going to some games, I'd love to hear how you secured those tickets and what you think about the ticket price as well. The number again, 813-755-6562. So, Will, I mean, this weekend, it's a Florida Series game, England versus New Zealand. This is kind of a warm-up match for these 2 teams, right?
It is a warm-up match. This is England's really big warm-up ahead of the tournament that starts for them. New Zealand just played a match recently against Haiti. It did not go well for them. They lost 4-0. And
yeah.
Respectfully, Matthew. So New Zealand is really looking to find something to hang their hats on because they have struggled in friendlies over the last year. So this England's a top 5 team in the world, and if they're able to get a result, that would be a really big boon for them ahead of their first match on June 15th.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the stats ahead of this conversation. I think New Zealand is kind of somewhere down in the 80s. I can't remember the exact number, but does a friendly match like this?
85th.
Yeah, 85th. Thank you. And actually, they're fairly similarly ranked to Haiti. So it's not a great result, 4-0 to New Zealand, but Haiti is not a team to be dismissed lightly. So I mean, does a friendly match like this have any effect on either team's standing?
No, it's really for a team like England, it's just getting used to the physical climate of being in the United States, high humidity, high heat, and so this is an opportunity to play in both of those environments, something that most of their players are not used to. For New Zealand, it's an opportunity to get something positive going. They have lost they're winless in their last 8 friendlies. New Zealand, Australia, Norway, Colombia, and Ecuador are all playing in this World Cup this summer, but none of them are of the caliber of England. New Zealand has a decent group that they could do some things in. They play Iran, and no one knows what to expect from Iran. They were great in World Cup qualifying, but there's just been a lot of upheaval over there. And then Egypt and Belgium, and the last time New Zealand played in the World Cup, they did not lose a match. They didn't win any, but so getting a little bit of confidence for both teams will be good. And for England, it's all about making sure that Harry Kane stays healthy.
Yeah, he's the key to the English side. I mean, on Iran, though, I think I was reading they're still waiting on visas. Are there still some question marks about whether, when they actually show up?
There are some questions. They're awaiting some visa issues. But for them, it's all really about who's going to play for them. I mean, they breezed through Asian qualifying. They were, I think, 11-2-1 throughout World Cup qualifying and lost one match. But over the last 3 months, life has very much changed for Team Melli.
Yeah. If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about World Cup soccer with Will Brown. He's a reporter with Jacksonville today. There's a friendly match between England and New Zealand coming up in Tampa this Saturday. If you're planning to attend, let us know, 813-755-6562. Maybe there's some other games you're more interested in or teams that you are keen fans of. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. Maybe you remember the last time that the United States hosted the World Cup and have some thoughts about how that tournament might compare with today. You can also email us at floridamatters@wusf.org. So, I mean, this is like the pinnacle for soccer fans, right? It's a festival. It's a celebration of the sport. It's pretty exciting. It's easy to get kind of sucked into the excitement, even if you aren't a huge soccer fan. What's it like for you, Will? Like, what's your kind of World Cup appreciation level at right now?
I am very excited. The first World Cup match I remember watching was when the U.S. played. They played Switzerland in 1994, and I was watching in my bedroom in Sarasota, and still remember Eric Winalda scoring for the U.S. I went to a World Cup when it was in South Africa, so it is a beautiful tournament. I met some wonderful people. I talked more trash than I probably ever have in my life, but thankfully the U.S. backed it up that year.
Yeah.
But with so many more teams this year, there are 48 now. This is the first 48-team tournament. The previous, I think, 5 or 6 tournaments were 32 teams. So now it's given an opportunity for countries like Iraq is in the World Cup for the first time in 40 years. Cape Verde, which has a population half the size of Hillsborough County, is playing in the World Cup this year. Haiti is in the World Cup for the first time in about 50 years. Curacao is in the World Cup. So it's given chances to some smaller countries that haven't been in a World Cup before. And anything can happen. I very much remember Senegal was not expected to do anything against France in 2002, and they surprised France and the world by beating the reigning world champions in the opening game. So it is a great opportunity to learn about different cultures. And, if you're watching the first match next week between Mexico and South Africa, it's important to remember as Floridians that if they talk about people playing for the Orlando Pirates, it's a team in the South African Premiership, not in Central Florida.
That's a good point. I mean, there are some similarities. Pirates, Central Florida. I mean, the two things kind of go together. So I could see people making that mistake. Did you play soccer as a kid, Will? Is that how you got interested?
I did. My parents forbade me from playing American football, and so I got into soccer and have loved and followed the sport for decades.
So what about Florida then? I mean, there are some matches being played here. If you're thinking about games that will be played in Florida, what do we have to look forward to?
So there are 7 matches that are going to be in Florida, 4 in the group stage, and then 3 in there's a quarterfinal match, a knockout round match, a quarterfinal match, and then the third place match. The first Florida match is between Saudi Arabia and Uruguay on Monday, June 15th. Down in Miami. Then also on June 21st is Uruguay versus Cape Verde. And then June 24th is Scotland versus Brazil, which I think I saw today that their tickets, the lowest ticket is $1,800 for that match.
Wait a minute, $1,800? Just run those teams past me again.
So Scotland versus Brazil, the lowest ticket price, which was in the 300 section of the stadium down in Miami, was $1,800. I saw that this morning. And Brazil is a 5-time champion. They won the World Cup the last time it was here in the United States. I wouldn't say that they are a favorite, but they are coached by the ultimate big game hunter in Carlo Ancelotti. And so you never know what Ancelotti will do. He's had a way of winning trophies in Europe, but this is his first national team job and the first time Brazil is coached by a non-Brazilian. The last match, guaranteed match in Florida is Colombia and Portugal on June 27th, and that will feature likely Cristiano Ronaldo, who's like me in his early 40s. But also Portugal has a fantastic midfield, and Colombia was one of the best teams in South American qualifying.
So there could be some upsets there to look out for, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
The number 813-755-6562. If you're a soccer fan looking forward to the World Cup, let us know your thoughts about the upcoming tournament. Which teams are you following? What are you looking out for? And are you going to go to some games in Florida? 813-755-6562. So what about Team USA? How are they looking this year?
You never know what to expect. The 2022 World Cup, where they lost in the round of 16 to the Netherlands, as many as 6 of the people who were on the field in that match should be starters for this year. There's goalkeeper Matt Turner, defenders Serginho Dest and Jedi Robinson, and this year's captain Tim Ream, as well as Tyler Adams and Christian Pulisic. The problem is that Pulisic has only scored 2 goals for club and country this calendar year. And if the United States is going to win, they need him to perform. There's still a couple of spots up in the air, including center forward. They have Ricardo Pepi, who's a 23-year-old Texan, who is on the squad. And the United States has never lost a match when Pepi has scored a goal. So if he is in the starting 11 and it puts the one in the back of the net, that is boding well for the United States. The United States has Turkey, Paraguay, and Australia in the group phase, and all of those are teams that they can beat. They just have to go out and show they can beat them.
There's got to be something to be said for home field advantage, right? I mean, I think that came through in the early 90s when the United States hosted the last World Cup on these shores, right? So that's probably going to give them a bit of a boost.
Yes. Brazil beat the United States in the round of 16, 1-0, but the United States played very, very well in that match. They really had a couple of opportunities. But to your point, a number of first-time world champions have won on home soil. Uruguay in 1930, Italy in 1934, Argentina in 1978, France in 1998, all won, and obviously England in 1966. They all won their first World Cup on home soil. So, maybe the men can learn from the women and win a World Cup.
Yeah, England in 1966. Though, I mean, I've got to think, for an English soccer fan, they're such a football mad country. That's a long time to be in the footballing wilderness, right?
Yes, but the difference between then and now is there's video assistant referees, so we'll know for sure whether the ball completely crosses the line in a World Cup final this year. England beat Germany, I think 4-2 in extra time in 1966. But they have the team that can do it. Harry Kane scored more goals than anyone in the top 5 European leagues this club season with his club team Bayern Munich. They have Arsenal, who got to the European Champions League final last week, sent 4 teams to this England squad, and so including Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka. So England has the players to make a run, and they've been in the semifinals of 3 of the last 4 tournaments. So they have every opportunity to be there. Personally, I've picked them to get to the final. I have them losing to France, but anything can happen in a World Cup, especially with the heat and the variable of playing an 8th game this tournament.
Indeed. In the last 30 seconds or so we have here, Will, where are you going to be watching games from? What's your kind of home turf when it comes to watching some of this World Cup action?
I'm going to watch some at home with my son, who's about my age when the World Cup was here last time. I might also go out and be among the people and try and chew bubblegum so I don't say any spicy language if the U.S. forgets to have their shooting boots on.
Well, we're going to leave the conversation there, but Jacksonville Today reporter Will Brown, thank you so much for sharing some of your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Let's turn now to our mailbag. Lots of you have emailed us over the last couple months. We wanted to read a few of those emails. Back in April, we talked about Local News Day with a panel of experts from the Tampa Bay media scene. We got this email from Kitty Rora in Kenneth City. Kitty wrote, quote, I have to pile on about how crucial local news is to our democracy. I love local news outlets. WUSF, of course, fantastic. And I'm a big fan of actual newspapers. And she says that includes the Tampa Bay Times. Kitty went on to say, it's still a shock and a tickle to find a real newspaper at my doorstep twice a week, plus online, of course. Kitty, thank you so much for reaching out. Now, we've covered property tax more than once in the last few weeks, I should say. Here's a question we got from Sonia in Tampa. Quote, does anyone else think that sales tax will go through the roof to replace property tax revenue if property tax is abolished? This would distribute costs away from homeowners, but greatly impact people living in RVs, for example. The impact on cost of living would be enormous. All around, it might put tourists off visiting Florida too. Well, voters like you get to decide on property tax in November, whether a proposed constitutional amendment will be on the ballot. And on hurricane preparation, which we talked about last week, Sarah in Tampa wrote of her hurricane experience. Quote, I had no power for 5.5 days. She goes on to say she got a crystal clear FM radio on a battery-powered Sangean H201 portable AM/FM radio. Sarah, that is good advice. A radio is handy to have in hurricane season. We'd love to hear from you as well. If you've got questions or comments, you can reach out by email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, coming up next, St. Pete Opera is ending their 20th season with Puccini's La Boheme. We'll hear from a cast member in just a bit. That's when Florida Matters Live and Local continues. Stay with us.
I'm Robin Young. On her new album, Grammy winner Lizzo takes on some demons, including a tendency to be too nice.
I am a serial people pleaser. I was the friend, had the car that would drive all my friends everywhere they wanted to go.
It's always drinks on me.
Next time, here now.
We drink expensively. Then when the bill comes, everybody leaves. I paid a check, but no one checks.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
St. Petersburg College is approaching its 100-year celebration and invites you to support the powerful mission of creating better jobs, better lives, and better communities. More at SP College, Pathway to Better.
On the next Florida Roundup, who's hiring? It's cap and gown season. A fresh class of hopefuls are starting their careers, or hope to. They're entering an increasingly tight and competitive job market. Florida's unemployment rate has been steadily rising over the past year and is higher than the national jobless rate. Are you looking for work? What's the job hunt like today? We want to hear from you. Email us, radio@thefloridaroundup.org. I'm Tom Hudson. Then be sure to join us Friday, noon until 1.
Hi, this is Rebecca Kesby from the BBC's NewsHour. Heard weekday mornings at 9. From world news to local news, you're listening to WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. St. Pete Opera is concluding their 20th anniversary on a high note. Their season-long celebration wraps up this weekend with Puccini's La Boheme. This is a story about relationships, struggle, and chosen family, and how love and art are what hold us together. Well, that is from St. Pete Opera's staging of the opera a decade ago. Now, maybe you've got a favourite production of La Boheme, or maybe you'd want to share a memorable performance from St. Pete Opera over the last 2 decades. You can join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or emailing us. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Just to note, WUSF is a media partner with St. Pete Opera. We're here to talk with us about St. Pete Opera's 2 decades and about this year's production of La Boheme is Elizabeth Novella, soprano who plays the role of Mimi. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
And we're also joined by Mark Savorsini, the St. Pete Opera's General Director. Mark, thank you as well.
So happy to be here.
Mark, 20 years is quite some time right now. You've been at the helm of St. Pete Opera. What does it feel like to get ready for the grand finale of the 20th anniversary season?
I'm just so proud of what we're about to put on stage these coming 2 weeks with the La Boheme. It was the first opera we did as the newly formed St. Pete Opera Company 20 years ago, and we repeated it in our 10th anniversary, and it was substantially improved, and another 10 years later it's yet another major improvement in how the company produces these operas and the artistic level we're putting on stage. So it's just really exciting to have those 3 milestones each 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, you're a part of this legacy with the role of Mimi this weekend, but you've also been in 2 other St. Pete Opera productions. What does it mean to be back for this anniversary season?
It's a great honor, and I feel so excited to premiere this touchstone role with a company that I have kind of developed this really wonderful relationship with. I'm just really looking forward to making my debut as Mimi. I've also done Micaela and Carmen last season, and my first role with the company was the mother in Amal and the Night Visitors. So I'm very, very excited to be back.
And this isn't your only experience with La Boheme, right? I understand you were in a different production of La Boheme as a different character, so it must be interesting getting a look at it from a different, character's voice and also a different, production.
Absolutely. So I've played Musetta, and she is a very fiery character. Also an amazing, super fun role, but Mimi is completely different. All of these characters have a great sense of humanity, but Mimi there's just a depth to her that, it's a different exploration. So both wonderful, but happy to be making my debut as Mimi as well.
And for listeners who may not be familiar with La Boheme, how does your character Mimi fit into the story?
So she is in the kind of main coupling in the show. She's in love with Rodolfo, and her life is a bit tenuous, and she kind of is looking to enjoy her time on Earth while she has it, basically. And one of the things that she gets to enjoy most is falling in love. And I'm not sure that she has ever really done that for real. And in her first aria, at the very start of it, she's kind of taken aback because it's right after Rodolfo sings to her. And the last thing he says to her is, "And now I'd love to hear about you." And she's kind of like, "I've never been asked about me," So it's this really beautiful moment where she kind of gets to feel cared for, I think, for maybe the first time in her life. And, it's just, this whole show is just filled with those like very relatable moments where, you kind of see what it's like from the perspective of this situation in your life or this situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a milestone role for so many people, because you kind of do have to live a little bit of life before you can understand where many of these characters are coming from. Mimi, Musetta, Marcello, Rodolfo, any of these folks. So
yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, I guess it's a testament to the art form and, of course, the composer that you can find this humanity and these roles. I mean, they're so iconic, and of course, it's a very kind of, I wouldn't say niche, but it's maybe not as popular as it would have been at one point, opera. So you're sort of digging deep to sort of find that and bring that across in your performance. If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Elizabeth Novella, a soprano who plays the role of Mimi in La Boheme, and Mark Sforzini is the St. Pete Opera's General Director. I should note, too, we are having a few issues with Zoom, and we have a little bit of apology there. The sound quality may not be up to the usual high standard, but bear with us. We're glad to have the guests on with us. Mark, let's come back to you for a moment. So the last time St. Pete Opera did La Boheme was a decade ago, and you mentioned that in our intro. What can we expect this weekend that's going to be different from 2016?
Well, every time the set is different than before. We've got a different staging of the set, and I think that over those 10 years as a conductor, we're artists and we're always growing, and so I feel like my interpretation of this great music has deepened considerably, over the 20 years since I first conducted it, but a lot over the past 10 years. I feel like I have new insights about the pacing of the music and where it should speed up a little, where it should slow down a little bit. The thing that's so wonderful about conducting this score is it's like a movie score. Puccini has written the music to accompany the action that's happening on stage so beautifully. So to have a great symbiosis with our stage director, Matt Haney, about what's happening with the acting on stage, and to pace the music so well with the timing of that, and to work with this cast is like a dream cast. They're all so wonderful, and they've all been so open to my musical ideas, and so I feel like we really have a tremendous final product, a tremendous representation of what this great score that Puccini wrote can be when it's integrated so nicely into the staging that's happening on stage.
Now, people often compare La Boheme to Rent, the musical. There's even a song in Rent called La Vie Boheme. So what's your elevator pitch, Mark, to a curious listener who loves Rent but maybe has never seen and heard La Boheme?
Well, La Boheme is traditionally one of the most popular operas of all times. It's so accessible. Puccini lived at a time when there was a movement in opera called Verismo, which was about real-life situations and people. So it's not operas about gods and mythological figures, or even huge historical figures like Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. It's about everyday people. It's about cold apartments and not being able to pay the rent, and hunger and jealousy and young love. And I think we just see ourselves in these characters, and Puccini makes us care about everyday stuff. Like when Mimi sings the first aria Liz was talking about, she's singing about simple stuff like embroidery and flowers and springtime and going to church, and it's just, he makes us care about these people. And we see their bond of friendship. The whole first act establishes that these bohemian artists are getting through their struggles with humor. They're getting through all the troubles they're having with humor, and I think that's why it's so emotional and compelling when Mimi does have her decline at the end of the opera.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, back to you. I mean, is that what you think keeps this opera fresh for new audiences? Some of those themes that are still around with us, like trying to pay rent and struggles with kind of life and love and things like that.
100%. I'm right there with you, Maestro. I think that it's so it's poignant, also, especially like as an artist myself. These are all things that we feel and do in different sort of ways throughout our lives. And I think that there's just a lot that's very relatable in this show, and I think that the simplicity, like Maestro was saying, really helps to elevate those emotions, because you get to see just how they're living, and what more do we want from life? Just to live. And even Rodolfo says that. He's like, how do I live? I live.
Yeah. just as we close out here, Elizabeth, for folks who haven't been to an opera before, maybe a bit worried about, like, it's in Italian, I'm not going to follow it. Like, what would your word of encouragement or advice be?
My word of encouragement is this is one of the most beautiful and popular operas in the world. I always recommend this actually as a great first opera for people, just because there's always going to be something in this score that you recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I think that this is something that people can really enjoy and relate to. And I think Maestro has a couple of things that he would like to say as well.
Yeah, go for it, Mark.
I just want to chime in there that we have the projected translations above the stage. So while they're singing everything in Italian, it is translated into English while they're singing it above the stage. So, you can see all that in real time.
That's got to be handy. Well, we're going to have to leave the conversation there, but St. Pete Opera General Director Mark Sforzini and soprano Elizabeth Novella. We've been talking about St. Pete Opera's 20 years and about this weekend's production of La Boheme. You can catch that at the Palladium Theatre in St. Pete, June 5th, 9th, 12th, and 14th. Mark, Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you. Operas for everyone.
Well, that is our show for today. Next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, it's 10 years since the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. At the time, America's deadliest mass shooting. June is also Gun Violence Awareness Month, and we're going to take a look at where things stand with gun violence prevention. You can tune in Monday at noon. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Producers Amelie Horace and Quincy Walters. Engineers Jackson Hart, Blake Bass, and Gio Garvin. Malika Hollis handles the video, and Claire Macchiarola is our intern. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast, watch on WSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for being with us, and have a great weekend.